not overthinking texts because you are dramatic. You are overthinking texts because your brain is doing a very specific kind of threat math that it cannot do with actions. And the insane part is this: the more you stare at the words, the less connected you get to reality. Quick thing, and then I will get right into it. We are building toward our next subscriber milestone, and if this channel has given you even one useful mental model, subscribing genuinely helps it reach people who actually care about psychology instead of recycled advice. And hitting like is not a support the creator thing, it is literally how the algorithm decides whether this gets shown to anyone. Now, think about the last time you spiraled over a message, not even an obviously bad message. Something neutral. Okay, sure. A response that could mean 10 different things. You read it once, then again, then you start scanning for microsignals like punctuation, timing, the absence of an emoji, the length of the sentence, the vibe of one word. Meanwhile, the person who sent it is consistently not showing up, not calling, not making plans, not following through. Their actions are loud, but you treat their actions like background noise and their text like sacred scripture. That pattern is not random. It is not just anxious attachment in the generic sense. Here is what is actually happening. Texts are low-cost signals with high interpretive freedom, which makes them perfect fuel for a prediction machine that hates uncertainty. Actions are high-cost signals with low interpretive freedom, which makes them emotionally inconvenient when you are invested in a story. And the reason you default to the story is not because you are weak. It is because your brain is optimized for social survival, not truth. Let me show you what I mean with a simple shift. A text is not a message. It is a data fragment. It is one pixel of a larger image. But your mind treats that pixel like it contains the whole picture, because pixels are the only thing you can control in the moment. You can reread a text. You can zoom in. You can analyze. You can ask a friend. You can form a theory. You can do something. You cannot reread someone consistently making time for you. You either have it or you do not. You cannot dissect someone choosing you. It either shows up in behavior or it does not. And that is a much more final kind of information. So the first novel insight is this: overthinking texts is often not a search for meaning. It is a covert attempt to regain agency in a situation where actions have already removed it. Notice the pattern here. When actions are clear and positive, you do not obsess over texts. If someone is reliably present, you can receive a dry okay, and you will not spiral because your nervous system has a baseline of safety. The text is just a garnish. But when actions are inconsistent or disappointing, your mind becomes addicted to the only thing it can still manipulate: interpretation. You are not reading the message. You are reading for leverage. You are trying to find a sentence that lets you keep hope without looking foolish. Now here is where it gets interesting. The brain has a built-in preference for information that is cheap to acquire, even when it is low quality. There is research on information foraging, basically the idea that minds seek information the way animals seek food: maximum calories for minimum effort. Texts are cognitive fast food: easy to get, instantly available, endless variety, and the taste is uncertainty. Actions are slow-cooked reality: harder to obtain, slower to observe, and once you see them, they force a decision. So you keep snacking on texts. Refresh, check, reread, compare, interpret. It feels like you are doing deep analysis, but you are actually staying in a loop where no conclusion is required. Second insight: you overthink texts because ambiguity is emotionally cheaper than clarity. People say they want clarity. Most people do not. They want a form of uncertainty that keeps the door open. Because a closed door means grief. A closed door means you have to revise your self-image. A closed door means you have to admit you invested in someone who did not match you. A text can keep the door cracked open forever. I have been busy. Sorry, I fell asleep. This week has been a lot. These sentences are not necessarily lies, by the way. That is the trap. They can be true and still function as avoidance. Truth does not equal commitment, and your mind, if it is even slightly attachment sensitive, will treat plausible deniability as oxygen. Because then you do not have to confront the core question: if the actions do not match the words, what am I actually in? Let me show you the most brutal version of this. When you focus on actions, you are forced to ask, what is this person consistently choosing? When you focus on texts, you get to ask, what could this person possibly mean? One question measures reality, the other measures imagination, and imagination is where your brain can still win. But there is a third layer that most people miss. Texts hijack a very old social mechanism designed for face-to-face groups, and it breaks when you put it inside a phone. In real life, status and belonging are regulated by microfeedback. Eye contact, tone, turn-taking, laughter timing, physical proximity, immediate repair after a mistake. Your nervous system evolved to read those signals as a continuous stream. Text cuts that stream into delayed fragments. No tone, no body language, no immediate repair, just gaps. Your brain hates gaps because gaps are where you used to die socially. In a tribal environment, an uncertainty about your standing could mean exclusion. Exclusion could mean literal death, so the brain evolved to treat social ambiguity like a threat that deserves obsessive monitoring. That is why you can be calm about money and still lose your mind over K. Your prefrontal cortex understands that it is a letter on a screen. Your nervous system experiences it as a status event with missing context. So it fills in the context with whatever your past has trained it to expect. This is important. Your mind does not interpret text based on the sender. It interprets texts based on your learned template for loss. If you have been dismissed, you read dismissal. If you have been replaced, you read replacement. If you have been punished for wanting closeness, you read punishment. The message becomes a projective test. You are not decoding them. You are revealing you. Now watch what happens next, because this explains why you ignore actions. Actions are often slow, boring, and cumulative. They require longitudinal attention. They require you to track patterns across time and then update your beliefs. Texts, on the other hand, are engineered for salience. They are literally notifications. The system is built to interrupt you, which makes the message feel urgent even when the relationship is not. So you get a distorted sense of what matters. Your brain confuses what is interruptive with what is important. That is why someone can send 10 messages and never show up, and you still feel emotionally engaged. The engagement is coming from stimulation, not investment. Here is the mechanism behind this. Variable ratio reinforcement. It is the same schedule that makes slot machines addictive. In most of the time, you get nothing. Sometimes you get a rewarding message. Your dopamine system does not respond to rewards as much as it responds to unpredictable rewards. So if someone is inconsistent, they become more psychologically sticky, not less. You start chasing the hit, and the text becomes the lever you pull. That means the fourth insight is uncomfortable. Some of your overthinking is not love. It is reinforcement learning. You are being trained. And if you have ever wondered why you feel calmer when someone is clearly unavailable than when someone is vaguely available, this is why. Clear unavailability is stable data. Vague availability is a dopamine casino. Now stay with me, because this next part recontextualizes everything. There is a single hidden conflict inside you when you obsess over texts. You want intimacy, but you also want to avoid the vulnerability of asking for it directly. Texts let you request closeness without risking a clean rejection. You can keep it indirect. You can pretend you are just checking. You can hide your desire inside analysis. If you say, "I want to see you," "When are you free?" you might get a no, you might get ignored, you might get delayed, and then you have to deal with the truth. But if you reread their message for an hour, you can feel like you were engaging with them without actually putting your need on the table. So overthinking becomes a compromise. It gives you proximity without exposure. And if that hits a nerve, good. Because that is the exact point where people either grow up emotionally or they keep living inside interpretive loops for years. Now let me make this practical in a way most videos do not. You need a different scoring system, not what did they say versus what did they do in a moralistic way. You need a way to stop your brain from awarding points to low-cost signals. Here is a framework I use: cost, consistency, and constraint. Cost means, what did this require from them? Time, effort, sacrifice, risk, planning, social capital. A text costs almost nothing. Showing up costs something. Consistency means, does it repeat over time, especially when it is inconvenient? Anyone can be affectionate on a good day. Consistency shows you what is structural. Constraint means, does the action reduce future ambiguity? A real plan with a time and place constrains uncertainty. We should hang out sometime expands it. Now here is the rule. If a signal is low cost and low constraint, do not let your nervous system treat it as evidence of anything. That one rule will save you months of your life. Because what you are really doing when you overthink is evidence laundering. You take weak evidence, you process it with intense emotion, and it comes out feeling like strong evidence. But it is still weak. You just made it vivid. So you have to reverse that. Make actions feel vivid. Make texts feel small. Here is how you do that without becoming cold. You start keeping a private ledger that your brain cannot argue with. 3 columns in your notes app: what they initiate, what they follow through on, what they avoid, not what they say, not what you hope, not what you fear, what they initiate, follow through on, and avoid. And after 2 weeks, you will see a signature. Everyone has one. Some people initiate but do not follow through. Some people follow through only when you initiate. Some people avoid anything that increases closeness. That signature is the truth of the relationship. Now, the part that will feel almost offensive, your anxiety will try to protect the old system by calling this too harsh or too logical. That is just your brain defending ambiguity, because ambiguity is where hope lives. But hope that depends on ignoring evidence is not hope. It is a delay in grieving. Now I want to address the question that is probably forming in your head. Okay, but what if I misread the actions too? What if they are busy? What if they are depressed? What if they are going through something? Yes, that is real. That is nuanced. And here is the adult distinction. Explanation is not the same thing as obligation. They can have a valid explanation and still be unable to offer a relationship that meets your needs. Both can be true. You are not a court deciding guilt. You are a person deciding fit. And texts are seductive because they keep you in courtroom mode, debating, arguing, building a case. Maybe they meant this, maybe they meant that, as if the goal is to prove they care. But the goal is not to prove they care. The goal is to notice whether your life is actually being met with reciprocal energy. Here is the synthesis, the pattern behind the patterns. You overthink texts and ignore actions because texts are interpretive, and interpretation is where you keep control. Actions are definitive, and definitiveness forces you to either accept love or accept loss. So your mind does what all minds do under threat. It chooses the reality that feels most controllable, not the reality that is most true. When you finally see that, you can stop fighting yourself. You can say, "Of course I want to interpret. Interpretation makes me feel safe," and then you can choose a better safety system. The better safety system is not paranoia, it is calibration. You calibrate by weighting signals based on cost, consistency, and constraint. You use the ledger to interrupt evidence laundering, and you practice one terrifying skill that makes overthinking mostly disappear: direct bids. A direct bid sounds like, "I like you. I want to see you this week. If you are not in a place for that, tell me honestly." That sentence is not needy, it is efficient. It collapses ambiguity. It turns a dopamine casino into a yes or no environment. And yes, you risk rejection, but you stop paying the hidden tax of constant rumination, because overthinking is not free. It costs sleep. It costs dignity. It costs your ability to be present with people who are actually there. So here is the challenge I want you to run for the next 7 days. Every time you feel the urge to reread a text, do one action instead that increases reality. Look at the ledger, make a direct bid, or do nothing and observe, but do not reread. Rereading is not observation, it is self-hypnosis. If you do this, something weird will happen. You will start feeling less chemistry with people who are inconsistent, not because you became numb, because your brain stopped being fed by variable rewards, and you will start feeling more attraction to people who are stable. Again, not because you settled, because your nervous system finally recognized safety as desirable. You started this video thinking the problem was that you read the wrong thing into texts. The deeper problem is that you treat texts like they are reality, and you treat reality like it is negotiable. If this changed how you see your own patterns, I would genuinely like to hear what kind of text triggers you the most. The short replies, the delayed replies, the tone shifts, the sudden warmth. Because that detail usually points straight to the original template your brain is replaying. And the next time you catch yourself staring at a screen trying to extract meaning from punctuation, then ask yourself one clean question: what do their actions make inevitable? Because that is the answer you have been avoiding, and it is also the one that sets you free.